Hello, everybody. It's Annie Barrett here. Welcome back to the Vibrant Soulful Wellness Podcast. This is your podcast for ideas, practices, and strategies for living and working more vibrantly and soulfully. I'm your host. I've spent the past 25 years guiding individuals, groups, and workplaces toward higher health and well being and greater fulfillment using tools like coaching, lifestyle medicine, habit change science, mindfulness, Ayurveda, and yoga. And I'm glad you're here. And today we're going to be talking about habits for November. An overall theme this month in November is how we can nourish our roots, how we can take care of ourselves, how we can root ourselves in resilience, how we can stay grounded in times of change. And one of the ways in which we do this is thinking about our habits, because really, when it comes down to it, our habits are roots. They are roots of resilience. They are nourishment for everything that we do in life. And when we have deep roots, we have strong branches. And I know that keeping up with our habits or adapting our habits to each season sometimes can be a little bit challenging. So I want to talk today about two ideas that I'm thinking of this at this time in November. One of them is the way I deal in my life with high and low motivation for things that I know are good for me. For example, it is a rainy, windy day as I'm speaking to you, and on my calendar is to go to the pool and swim. And I know it's really good for me. And I also feel a little bit lazy about going. I don't totally want to get out of my cozy home, brave the wind and cold and rain, and go up to the pool. And I know it's really good for me. And so it's interesting how we can think about when our motivation is high, we really want to go out and do that thing. And when our motivation is low, we don't want to as much, and how we can deal with that. That's one of the concepts I want to talk to you about today. And the other one is this idea of what a keystone habit might be, a habit that I want to do every day. It is something that's non negotiable and something that is going to bring my life into order and help me feel vital and nourished and resilient. So, two concepts today: what we do with high or low motivation, particularly what we do with low motivation, and how we can tune in and lean into a keystone habit, something that we do every day that really helps everything else go really well. And to talk about this, I'm actually going to let you listen to a clip of an audio of a little talk that I gave on high and low motivation and keystone habits. And then I'm going to come back at the end and we'll talk about how we can use these ideas as we think about November and the cold season and habits that nourish us and that are roots for our resilience. All right. Hey there, it's Annie. I want to talk about two concepts in our habit journey. One of them is motivation, and one of them is the concept of a keystone habit. So, you've probably already noticed along the way, certainly in this habit journey and in life, that sometimes motivation is high and sometimes motivation is low. And it's not reasonable to expect yourself to have high motivation every day. It's reasonable to expect that motivation is going to change based on the day, and instead to have some understanding of how to work with both high and low motivation. So sometimes when we start on a journey, motivation is high, and that's great, and it feels good when we're starting, because when motivation is high, we can do hard things. We can do the hard things that structure future behavior. You can set a new default that's going to make it not hard to follow that new behavior. For example, say you want to do more yoga. When motivation is high, you're going to get yourself a new yoga mat. Maybe you're going to schedule a private yoga session, or maybe you're going to sign up for a yoga membership, something so that what's going to be really easy for you to follow through with a goal of getting in more yoga. You're also going to do hard things that reduce behaviors for reduce future poor behaviors. For example, say for example that you don't want to eat junk food. So when your motivation is high, maybe you clear out the cupboards, you get rid of all the junk food that's around and you go buy fruits and veggies. Instead, you cut them up and put them in your fridge, get really organized, do more prep, say it's a weekend or something. And then during the week when maybe your motivation isn't as high, it's going to be really easy for you to take out those veggies and roast them or add them to soup and eat them rather than defaulting to the junk food. When motivation is high, you can also do hard things that increase your capability. For example, maybe you want to learn a new recipe, or maybe you're going to sign up for an activity that you've never done before. And for example, when you learn a new recipe, the recipe might seem hard the first time, but it's going to be easy afterwards. So, when your motivation is high, three things here: doing the hard things that structure the future behavior, doing the hard things that reduce future poor behaviors, and doing the things that increase your capability. That's what you'll do when motivation is high. But sometimes motivation is low, and then you're going to do the easy things, not the hard things. You're going to do the easy thing, the structured behavior that's really small, the super easy thing that's the smallest step. For example, in Tiny Habits, which is you can Google Tiny Habits and learn about how you can make these small Kaizen habits. For example, say your motivation is low for doing meditation, but you can handle 1 minute or 3 minutes. So if you don't have the motivation or even the time to do a 20-minute meditation, you get up in the morning, you do a 3-minute meditation or a 1-minute meditation. I think everybody can probably fit in a 1-minute meditation. When your motivation is low, you want to take baby steps for long term change. So maybe you're going to just make steady progress in the tiny habit, like 3-minute meditation every day for a week, or even a 1-minute meditation every day for a week, or eating one fruit a day for a week, something that seems really easy. Even just going back to the easiest habits like this photo of like, I know I can start my day with a glass of water, and that's something that I can be successful with. So, just some ideas to think about how you want to help yourself move forward, even when your motivation is low, and the things that you can do when your motivation is high. Along the way, you've heard me say it again and again, think Kaizen. Continuous slow improvement is going to get you where you need to go. So, you want to take on the low hanging fruit, the easiest thing to do that keeps you moving in the right direction. And as you're doing that, you'll be eliminating waste, material waste, energetic waste. You're starting to standardize and regularize what you're doing. And you start working on the practices until they become automatic, which over time they will become automatic. So, another concept that you're going to likely discover in yourself as you go on your habit journey is what we call a keystone habit. Now, you've been at this for a while. You may be noticing that there is one habit or behavior that naturally pulls the rest of your life in order. And this is what we call a keystone habit. The keystone, the definition of a keystone is just the central stone at the summit of an arch that locks the whole together, or the central principle or part of a policy on which all else depends. Similarly, with our habits, a keystone habit produces ripple effect. So, a keystone habit are the habits that one positive change has the potential to produce other positive changes or to bring the whole together in different parts of your routine. And as I've worked with people over the years, people have different keystone habits. For some people, it's just starting out the day with that drink of water. And that drink of water then helps them move forward with the next thing they're going to do, whether it's tongue scraping or their movement or planning their lunch. That is just one thing that once they start that, they're, good to go moving forward. But for other people, a keystone habit might be exercise. Every day when I exercise, it then helps me eat better. It helps my mood. It helps me be better in my relationships. And that keystone habit of exercise is super important. Or for some people, they might say meditation, that taking the time to ground in the morning helps me make better choices around the day in terms of how I use my time, how I eat, how I move my body, etc. So start looking out for what your keystone habit might be And as you find that, just notice the ripple effect of how it tends to bring the rest of your life in order. Thanks for tuning in. Okay, you just heard this short clip of me talking about high and low motivation and Keystone Habit. Let's bring it back to November. I'm going to bring it back to today. Today, when I don't have really high motivation to go swimming, I'm going to make it so easy I can't say no. I've actually structured this, and that is that I have a backpack in my bathroom with everything that I need to go swimming. I don't need to look for the swimsuit and goggles and towel, they are all in there. And that's making it so easy that all I have to do is put on my shoes and my raincoat and get out the door and go to the pool. And I'm not going to make myself swim my hardest today. I'm just going to say I'm going to get in and start. Often getting in and starting is the hardest part of it, right? And once I'm there, I might find, okay, yeah, I just swam 20 laps. I'm going to swim 10 more. Maybe I'll swim 40 laps. Maybe I'll swim 60. I don't know. I'll tell you maybe next week how long I swam. But in any case, I've already structured the habit so that I made it so easy I can't say no. And if my motivation is low or I feel a little tired, I don't have to go as far today. I'm just going to get in the pool and do it. So, high and low motivation, we do the hard thing earlier, which is, getting everything ready to go swimming, getting the membership, etc. And then now I just have to show up and do it. And what if I really, really don't want to do it? Last week, I had a day where I felt tired and I didn't do it. Instead, I took a walk and I went swimming the next day. And that's all right too, because we need to tune in and take care of ourselves. Okay. And we also talked about Keystone Habit for November. And what is your Keystone Habit for November? What is the thing that is non negotiable for you? Mine is early to bed. I am a menopausal woman, and if I can go to bed earlier, then whatever kind of upsets I might have in the night, waking up hot or waking up and having a difficult time falling asleep, I'm giving myself a buffer by going to bed earlier, knowing that I have another hour or two built into my sleep schedule before I have to get up in the morning to account for any challenges I might have in the night. That is my non negotiable for November. What is yours? Yours might be meal planning, yours might be yoga in the morning, it might be meditation in the morning. All of these are great Keystone habits. Remember, a keystone habit is something that you do that pulls the rest of your life together. So I'm curious to know what yours is. And I hope that talking about high and low motivation and a keystone habit is helpful for you in this month of November. Thanks so much for listening to the Vibrant Soulful Wellness Podcast. If you liked this episode and want to hear more episodes, subscribe to this podcast on Spotify. You can also head over to www.vibrantsoulful.com, where you can join my weekly newsletter, get links to these episodes, and enjoy lots of other wellness resources. Be well, be soulful, be vibrant. Talk to you again soon.